Welcome to A1R Psychic Radio here on Moonstruck TV with Amanda Hall, Psychic, all the way from the Gold Coast. I'm really excited to start the show off today. I thought we'd just have a little trip down memory lane and say that I've been with you now for 78 shows, including this one tonight. That's a major effort in anybody's book to be able to be here and sort of share the love and the knowledge around the world. And 78 shows, we're going strong. So before we kick the show off, I think we really do need to sort of just stop for a moment and remember the people that have been going through weather events in the last week, particularly with Cyclone Florence, and I can't pronounce the name of the typhoon, and all the places, the Philippines, China, and all those sort of places that have now got the massive cleanup as the weather event winds down. And it's not a pleasant thing to live through. Anybody that's ever lived in a hurricane, cyclone, typhoon sort of area will know that even though there's a certain amount of excitement in the air, and I suppose that's maybe not the right word, electricity in the air as the event's coming to be, and everybody's racing around and sort of battening down the hatches, and, you know, you come out the other side and you live to tell the tale, but then the real work starts. It's the cleanup. It's the things that people have lost that are very close to them, you know, not just the loss of life that we have to deal with, and there's always tragedies of that. There's always loss of life. No matter how well prepared we are, there's always somebody that thinks they know more than the emergency services people and decide to stay with their properties for whatever reason, and it's not a criticism. But then we have the personal losses as well, the things that are important to a family, you know, family heirlooms, family photographs, things that can't be replaced. And I think we need to just sort of be very, very thankful and hold them in our prayers to sort of let them know that we are with them and that we are thinking of them, even though there's maybe not much we can do as an individual. But just, you know, holding them in our prayers, I think they feel that energy. So anyway, to kick the show off, as we always do, with the Simply Tarot card of the week, this week I've drawn the card of the Nine of Wands. Now, the Nine of Wands is an ambiguous sort of card because it's a card where he's sort of standing to the front of the card with 8 wands to his back, and he's got one in front of him. Somebody's tickling my nose with a feather today from Spirit, so that's very kind of him. And it's an undecided card, so you need to take a step out of the situation, and then you will see more clearly where you're going or where you're heading. So sometimes I think if we can step out of a crisis or a situation or an issue that we're dealing with and look at it as if it's someone else's problem, take the emotion out of the situation, and then you get a lot more clarity on where you're going and how to handle the situation at hand. I thought this was a very, very apt card because, again, all around the world, political arenas, you know, like you wonder why you vote these people in to run countries and run empires and things like that. They all seem to have an agenda all of their own, and it seems to be a race to the bottom at the moment. And I sort of see this card almost relating to politics as well as our own personal stuff for the week, that maybe they need to take a step out of themselves and have a good, long, hard look at themselves, and then maybe they'll see the bigger picture clearly, which is why the public voted them in the first place, to get on with the job. That's enough of me being on my soapbox. So it's interesting, as each week we have a quick little glimpse around the universe, and again on the same sort of similar sort of theme where we've just been talking about politics. My inbox has been full in the last 7 days, and a lot of people are sort of saying to me, Amanda, I don't understand why I'm feeling so, not so much depressed, but I feel as if I've got nothing exciting coming up in my life. I feel as if I've got nothing to look forward to. I'm feeling worn out. I'm feeling burnt out. I'm feeling as if, you know, what's wrong with me? It's almost like we're at the end of the year, and I know we're not, but that's how I'm feeling. I sort of feel as if I want to take myself out of this madness. Look, there's probably a number of reasons for this, but can I just sort of backtrace a little bit to about a week and a half ago when we went through the new moon in Virgo, and I did speak about it extensively on the show here before the new moon happened, and I warned people that it was going to feel a little bit more like a full moon than it was a new moon, because new moons are times when we're supposed to set new intentions, the things that we want to draw to us on the short term, as well as the long term over the next, you know, future 12 months. But when I was researching the new moon in Virgo, and I always go with what I get psychically plus what I know from being an astrologer for many, many years, but I try and tap into the universal energy at the same time when I work with the moons to sort of see if there's anything else psychically that's coming up that may need to be added. And that's when I kept on being dragged across to what felt like a full moon energy. Now, a full moon energy is different from new moons because new moons is attracting new things. Full moons is when things have come to a completion, when we're ready to sort of purge them, to let them go, where they come to this surface and we're ready to skim it off and either put it away or discard it and throw it away and say that's complete, release it out into the universe. And it was a seesaw between both of those. Now, I feel that even though we've passed the new moon, I think because we've been in such a tumultuous time over this last 12 months, with a lot of planetary configurations and everything being more pronounced or stronger than what we feel is normal, or is it just we as a society, we're tuning more into ourselves and becoming more spiritual and starting to take notice of the signs and the energies and the patterns and things? I think it's a combination of things. But can I assure you, if you're feeling this way, and it doesn't matter what your star sign is, maybe you're being asked to have a reevaluation of your life. It is okay to say, look, I think I've completed that. I don't wish to go on with that job or that task or the career path that I've been in most of my life. I feel like I need a change, or I've completed everything that I want to do, and I just want to sort of wind down and go in a completely different direction, and I want to be a little bit more selfish or self-absorbed or look after my own self-interests. I don't believe there's anything wrong with that. I think we all need to take that time when the time is right for us and when it sort of really becomes urgent that we need to do so. I know for me personally, I'm always a person that's looking for answers or looking for new directions or new ways to handle things, or there must be a better or a more improved way of doing things. And I am very much a perfectionist. And I know this year for me has been not about so much about perfection, but about sort of looking at things and saying, oh, well, I think I've done enough in that department. Let's just have a rest, or let's go for a walk, or let's go down the beach, and sort of really allowing myself to relax and sort of just enjoy life more than I've ever done. And a lot of people have said that to me too, and it's got nothing to do with age. I'm talking about people from 18 to 80 telling me the same sort of stories over and over and over again. So maybe you can relate to that. All as I can suggest to you is follow your heart. If it feels right, then do it. If it feels wrong, then question it and make other choices. Try and learn to work with what you're feeling. Not necessarily are we necessarily shown things like a video or a movie on a screen, but sometimes it's just a feeling or a knowing. And that's also part of our psychic energy. We tend to sort of think of psychic energy or intuition or gut feeling, whatever label you want to put on it, as it's only reserved for a few. It's not. We all have this ability. We were all born with it. We were all born with a certain amount of natural gut instinct. There's nobody on the planet that isn't. Some people choose not to ignore it. Some people call it other things. I know that when you watch sort of detective shows and things like that, they don't call it gut instinct or psychic ability. They call it a hunch. Well, that doesn't matter what label you put on it. It's all still the same energy. We all possess it. For some of us, listen to it or acknowledge it more than others. So on that note, I think that you should sort of understand a little bit more about what's been going on in the last couple of weeks. We've still got some very heavy hitters happening. We've still got Uranus in Taurus. Will be there for many, many years. So Uranus is the planet that's bringing out into the open all the light bulb moments, the strikes of lightning, the flashes from parliaments and things that have been hidden, whether it's bullying or whether it's somebody had an affair or somebody told, porky pies. It's whatever it is, it's the opening. It creates the opening for the information to be brought into the open, into the light. Then we find planets like Pluto, which has been in Capricorn now for many, many years, comes in then and says, okay, now what are we going to do with this information? We need to sort of put this on the table. It needs to be dissected. We can't just shove it in the closet. It's got to come out. It's got to be dealt with. And we've got to see what lessons we can learn from that. But Pluto is also joined by his good mate Saturn, who's only going to be sitting in Capricorn for 2.5 years. And Saturn's like the taskmaster. He walks in and waves the big stick around and says, come on, boys and girls, we're going to get the job done. We're going to get things done. We're going to do it the right way, not the wrong way, and sort of sometimes can seem a little bit harsh in his lessons. But when you've got those three major players all sort of bouncing off each other, in a sense, because you've got Uranus in Taurus, which is making an easy aspect or easy flowing energy to Pluto and Saturn in Capricorn, no wonder we're starting to see things coming out. Every day we see the news, there's some new revelation or something new coming to pass. And it's like, wow, is this ever going to stop? Well, I think, hooray, bring it on. We need to bring these things out into the open so that we can deal with them as a nation, as a globe, and sort of, start to look at things like global warming. All these weather events, these 1 in 100 years and 1 in 200 years aren't happening because Mother Nature, well, she is angry with us, but it's a sign. It's a sign to say, stop doing what you're doing, start getting around that round table and start having some conferences about things like global warming. Look at what we as individuals can do to help change government thinking about government decisions and about, looking after the planet ourselves, minimising our plastic, things like that. There's always something that we can do as an individual. And even if that means planting a veggie garden, getting a couple of chooks, whatever's you're capable of doing is what we need to be looking at. Okay, so we're going to move the show along. This week I'm really excited to talk about, on an astrological front, we've been working with famous figures and we've been working our way around the zodiac. But each week I say I'm really excited to talk about whoever it is, because they are all amazing entertainers in their own right. And each and every one of them has had a special journey and put a special place in the world for all of us to enjoy in some small way. And this week there's only one person that's the king of rock and roll. There's only one person that I could be relating to, and of course that's Elvis Presley. Those that don't know who Elvis is, well, I don't know which rock you've been living under. I mean, even though he's been gone from us for many, 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 many years now, he is still affectionately known as the king, or the king of rock. He's somebody that I suppose in a sense was really our very, very first sex symbol when it comes to sort of musical entertainers like that. He came out, he dared to be different. He had very, very provocative moves, where he wiggled those sort of hips and drove all the girls crazy. And he was banned from television shows because he wouldn't stop his, magnetic moves on stage and things like that, even though they tried to film him from the waist up and things like that. People complained and cameramen did as they wanted to and not as they were directed. And, I think he really started a cult following in that way, that people really started to understand that music had a very big presence in our lives. And we need somebody larger than life like that to really set a precedent to open up an industry that had been sort of really not recognised up until then. Yes, there was always music around, but it was more a localised thing. You'd go down to the church hall or the local hall and go to a dance, and there may have been some singers or somebody strumming on a guitar or a band or something, and you'd go to the dance and that was it. But with somebody like Elvis, and I suppose also the commencement of television, where we were able to broadcast it and see it on screens and hear it at the same time, and we had all these amazing entertainment shows. In those days, we didn't have reality TV. We were actually entertained on TV, where we had some amazing show hosts that, would bring on amazing artists like Elvis Presley. They would deal with the issues at the time, but mostly it was about entertainment. And, Elvis Presley, we could go on for hours. I mean, he was drafted into the US Army. That created controversy because everybody believed he should have been exempt from that because he was such a national icon. He made movies. Anything that he touched, in a sense, seemed to turn to gold. And women were just throwing themselves at him. They just couldn't get enough of this man. It was bigger than God in a lot of people's eyes. But I think what people don't realise so much is that Elvis, like everybody else, had his insecurities, but he was very, very, very connected to his mum. And he was also extremely passionate and believed in a religious upbringing. And he really did sing a lot of gospel songs that not many people really associate with Elvis. They tend to associate others of his big hits and not so much his gospel-y type songs. But he really had a passion first and foremost for the gospel music. And even though he travelled the world and he was mobbed by thousands of women and, he was in some amazing movies, Blue Hawaii springs to mind and Love Me Tender. And, I don't think I've met a woman on the planet yet that didn't think Elvis was good looking. And if they did, well, they need glasses if they don't believe he was one of the best looking men on the planet at the time. He was just able to sing with this voice like silk. And I think he will always go down in history as one of the most amazing, talented people, but he was also extremely generous. And I think that's the one thing that people didn't realise about him. If, he met somebody and they showed an interest in his car, he gave it to them. No questions asked. Here, have it. Obviously you like it. Here's yours. So things like that people sort of really didn't write that much about him in the way that he was. And he was extremely good to his mum. He tragically died at a very young age. And, I suppose like a lot of people that become famous and nobody's taught how to deal with it, they get involved in whether it's, prescription drugs or other types of things to help them cope. He was into prescription medication to keep him awake, to go to sleep, things like that. And, you know, I think they become a prisoner of their own fame, that they're not able to go out and lead a normal life like the rest of us can do. And I think that's the tragedy of fame, is that people sometimes forget that they aren't superhuman, that they are people that would just dearly like to be able to walk down the town and window shop and go for a coffee like the rest of us, and not have people mob you and ask you for your autograph all the time. So anyway, next week we'll progressively move along. Next week we'll be looking at a female in Capricorn as our famous person of the week. So this week, the candle that I've chosen, and interestingly enough, I've set the format for these shows many, many months ahead, is that I think this is a very, very apt candle this week, and it's the candle of patience. Now, patience is one of those words that, I don't know about you, but I always looked at patience as almost should have been a 4-letter swear word, because it was something that, to me, I didn't seem to have a lot of. And it wasn't until I suppose I got quite mature that I realised that patience comes in many forms, shapes and sizes. It's not always about the ability to be patient and wait for something to happen. I think it's about the ability of being able to cope with what you're dealt with and find a way to find some sort of peace and balance in whatever it is that life throws at you. Whether or not you're waiting for the birth of a baby, or you're waiting for the new job, or you just blastedly run out of patience with somebody because they're driving you up the wall in the way that they behave in their lives, I think patience comes in many forms and levels. And I don't think that there's necessarily one description that fits all as when it comes to patience. And when I first went to design this candle, the patience candle, it was one that sort of sat on my desk, probably for a few weeks, where everything else, fragrances, colours, what we were going to call it, how it was going to work and why we were going to work with it, just sort of came within a matter of probably half an hour to an hour. The patience one was the one that I struggled with. I kept crossing it off my list. Then I'd put it back on, I'd put it back off. And I can remember one day, one of my fellow colleagues rang me and she was going on about something. And I said, oh, for goodness sake, I said, you need to grow some patience. And I thought, now, if I model that, my lack of patience around my fellow colleague and her dilemmas that were going on and how she wasn't coping with whatever she thought should have been happening at that time and trying to get a new show off the ground or whatever it was. And I thought, now I understand why I need a patience candle. I'm going to design it for her. And it was sort of like it became an in-house joke between people that I was working with at the time on a show, and that was the candle for our boss, that, you know, she needed to learn to cultivate patience, and we used to all joke about it. And we quite often had a patience candle burning in the studio, so that it sort of used to put a nice, calming, serene energy that everybody'd sort of walk in all frazzled from their busy day or whatever their work schedules were, and everybody'd walk in and exhale and go, oh, now I feel calm. So I think sometimes we all can do with that feeling of exhaling and creating that ambiance for all of us where we can sort of relax and enjoy things a little bit more and not be so stressed out. So patience is something that we need to cultivate. So for those of you that would be purchasing an extra large candle, they come with 2 wicks. I like to burn one side one day, the second side the next day. That just gives you a longer burn time out of the candle. The candles will burn up to, normally if you're burning 2 wicks, up to about 50 or 60 hours. If you burn the candle with alternate wicks, you can get up to about 100-hour burn time out of them. And I like to do that because the glass containers themselves get hot. The soy wax doesn't get hot, but the glass containers can get hot, and sometimes they crack when we have changes in temperature. So always, always, always put your candle on a coaster, preferably a cork one if possible, before you put it on a cupboard or a piece of furniture. Never place it under an air conditioner, a fan, near an open window, near curtains. Keep it away from pets and children. Just normal common sense safety rules apply. And I never personally leave a candle unattended, even though you can have it in a very safe, secure spot. Unless you're going to be with the candle, I don't think there's any safe way of burning a candle except babysitting it. And that's just my personal opinion. So for those of you that may not want to burn a candle, I have the ideal solution for you, and that's called a wax warmer or a melt warmer. You can buy these at your local variety store, or here in Australia we buy them at the supermarket under about $15 Australian, so probably cheaper overseas. This one's an electric one with a little button on the side. I take about half a teaspoon out of my candle and place it in the top of my melt warmer. I use my melt warmer in the same way, always placing it on a coaster. This I can safely leave, turn on in the beginning of the morning, read out aloud what's on my list, and we always talk about a list, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then I can safely let that, keep that melting all day, putting the fragrance throughout my home or my office. So, that's a safe way of doing it. For those of you that don't want to work with that and you want some travel candles or you want some little ones to take to work, we have our travel kit. You can make your travel kit up individually for the 3 candles that you want. This week off, obviously, I've made it 3 patience candles, but you can choose any one of 28 candles in the range and make up the kit that suits you. I know as we're heading towards sort of Christmas and people are looking for ideas for Christmas presents, particularly for school teachers and people that you don't need to purchase a big gift for. I know last year we had a real run on people buying boxes of the travel candle set where they were buying the 3 different individual ones, and it gave them 3 different gifts for people that they wanted to give a little gift for the giving season. So that's another idea as well. So what would we do when we want to work with a patience candle, I hear you say? Now, like anything, we need to write a list. And I'm a firm believer in it doesn't matter what we're trying to change in our lives or what we're trying to work on, we always need to write a list. So I was seriously thinking about the show, before the show, what would I personally put on my list if I was going to work with my patient? Well, I am working with my patient's candle this week, but what would I specifically put on my list to sort of give you a guideline of what I'm doing or how you can work with your patient's candle? And I came up with this idea that if you sit down and look at what are the things that you're trying to achieve in your life at the moment, things that may not have panned out the way that you want them to, or aren't moving fast enough, or there's been a blockage, or there's been some sort of hold up with it, that would be where I would start my list. Okay, I'm trying to bring in a new job and the reasons why the new job hasn't manifested, and then start to sort of put some bullet points to that. Then look at maybe some possible solutions or some ways that we can break through this. Then I think we could also ask, or just give me the patience to be able to handle whatever the universe wants to present me with. So I think there's many different ways there of looking at a patience candle. Sometimes people say, look, I need patience over to control my energy. Sometimes I get too cranky with people and I'm too impatient with them and I expect them to do things that they're not capable of doing. Well, that's fine. You can put that on your list, give me the serenity to sort of be able to accept people for who they are. There's many different reasons that we can work with a patience candle. So, I hope that sort of helped you a little bit. And I'm looking on my screen and we haven't got any callers yet. Oh, that's a bit of a one. Jamie in New York. Well, I don't know why it hasn't come up on my screen. So, hello, Jamie in New York. How can we help you, sweetie?
Hi.
Hi, do you have a question
Hello.
for me? You have a question for me, Jamie?
Oh, yes, I do. I'm sorry. My question is, will I be able to relocate back to Houston, Texas within the next 60 days?
I don't know that it's going to be within 60 days, Jamie. I think it's going to more likely to be closer to 80 days. But yes, I do think you will be able to relocate there. But there's just one slight hurdle that you need to overcome before we get to that point. So maybe you need to sort of fire up a candle, and it doesn't have to be one of my patients' candles, but get yourself a candle from down at the supermarket and sort of start looking at what are the blockages that could prevent you from achieving what you need to achieve within the 60 days. But yes, I do believe you are moving.
Okay, wonderful. Can I ask another question?
Yes, you can.
Okay, is Jose Hernandez, will he be returning to my life?
No, they're showing me the signs of that sort of completed, even though I know that you feel that there's still a connection or an energy or something unresolved there between you and him. I'm going to say to you, not in the way that you would want. I mean, if he was to come back towards you, it would purely only be a very casual, short-term sort of friendship. It would be nothing more. I think the journey that the two of you had to do together is now complete. So maybe it's one of those instances where you're better off just leaving the door shut and open your door up to new opportunities.
Okay. Thank you so much. So you don't see Jose Hernandez stepping in for his son?
Yeah, he'll step in for his son, but not anything past that, sweetie.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Oh, and then another question that I had was about my business. I'm a business owner, and I just want to make sure I won't have any issues with my processor within the next 1 year.
No, I don't feel you will. I think everything's going to go reasonably smoothly there because you're in tune with everything. You get on top of things before they become an issue.
Oh, that takes a lot of pressure off of me. Once I do relocate back to Houston, do you see any more children in my future?
Not in the short term, but I'm only looking at the next 12 months. I don't see a pregnancy in the next 12 months. I think you've got enough things to keep you going in this next 12 months without thinking about a baby just yet.
Wonderful. I'm trying to think if I think that was pretty much it. I'm trying to think of, my vehicle. Will I have to purchase a new vehicle within the next 6 months?
No, I don't believe so, sweetie. I think you'll be able to.
Thank you. You've been such a major help to me. Thank you. You took a lot of pressure off of me.
You're very, very welcome. Enjoy your move. So the show's gone really quickly again. So I hope that you sort of enjoyed what we've been talking about today. We'll do it all again in 7 days' time. And, of course, next week we'll have our famous female Capricorn singer next week. We'll also have a little trip around the universe and look at the astrology, at what's happening. But most importantly, I want you to be kind to each other. Really sort of look at sort of finding ways that you can bring a smile to someone else's face, because that is, after all, what makes the world go round, is our loving sort of caring energy that we can bestow on somebody else, even a perfect stranger, just by smiling and asking them how they are today. May just be that little bit of hope, that little bit of glimmer that they've never had in their day, that, you know, somebody actually took an interest in them and they are important. So, you know, hopefully we won't have any more weather events to talk about next week, and hopefully that everything will be the sunshine and the political arenas around the world might settle down and we might start to see some common sense prevail there. We can always hope. Maybe we should send them all a patience candle each in our mind, that maybe they can all sort of learn some patience and learn to get on with each other and do what they've been elected to do, and that's to make the world a better place. So until next week, I hope you enjoy whatever you're doing in this next 7 days. Bye for now.